wanna talk? So let's talk. Yeah. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk your
Good evening and welcome. It's Talk to Solomon time. My name is Stan Solomon, my co-host.
Chief Steve.
We also have Greg Howard with us, and my friend Dr. Alan Keyes joins us. Dr. Keyes, how are you?
I'm fine, Stan. How are you?
I am frustrated, like many people in this country, at the thought of either re-electing a communist or electing less than a communist, and watching. And you and I have talked about this outrageous crucifixion, if you will, of a quality conservative Republican who won a highly contested primary in Missouri to run for the Senate seat occupied by Claire McCaskill, a man who's a great conservative, has shown it for many, many years, and he did, if in the eyes of many, myself included, clumsily try and express a concept which frankly is not medically correct. But what he was saying is, if a woman is raped, however, either with slight resistance or putting her very life on the line, the bottom line is, if a child is conceived in that rape, it isn't the child who should pay the price, but rather the rapist. That's what he was in essence saying. And for that, he has been dogged, attacked, backstabbed by all of the Republican, much less the Democrats, and cast as some sort of a monster, when in fact it's not true. And yet the majority, if not the vast majority, of conservatives and Republicans in Missouri still back him. I know you have thoughts. Would you express them, please?
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head, Stan, when you said that what is at stake in this, I think, is Todd Akin's position that you should not victimize the child because someone has victimized the mother, and that makes no sense. I often advise folks when they are dealing with the issue of the so-called rape exception to just ask a simple question to whoever they're talking to. Could be a reporter, could be the American people. And that simple question is plain. Do you think it is right and just to punish an innocent child for the crime of that child's father? I have yet to find anyone, Stan, who will answer that question. Yes, that's right. That's what we should do. We should be punishing innocent children for the crimes of their parents. And I don't think that this is any highly abstract anything. It's just common sense. We don't do that. It's recognized not only that that's bad in itself, but if you hold each successive generation responsible in some a sense of forfeiting their lives and basic God-endowed rights for the sins of the previous generation, that's not just that they have to live with the consequences, because there's no escaping that. That is that they are subject to punitive action, right? Like killing them. Then what happens in wars when you think somebody has unjustly attacked your country? It would lead to never-ending vengeance and violence among nations as each generation clung to their sense that anybody who descends from those who did our country ill 200 years ago must be slaughtered. Do we want to unleash again that kind of vengefulness in the world? I think that this rejection, and it was, by the way, the stand that Akin takes is rejected by Romney's campaign. They explicitly, they didn't come out and do what some of these leftists have done and focus on the issue of whether he was somehow implying there could be such a thing as legitimate rape, right? They focused on this issue of the rape exception to make it clear that they didn't take his position and etc. And I find that quite telling, to be honest, because at the heart of and foundation of the pro-life movement, there is the declaration statement that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Is the child conceived as a result of rape somehow not endowed by the Creator with unalienable rights? And if the concept in that declaration, which limits government, the fact that it has to respect our unalienable rights, that's the basis for limited government. If we discard that concept when it comes to the child of rape, on what grounds, I'm not clear, then we have turned our back on the doctrine that protects all of us from the excesses of government. And that gives all of us the right to say, even if I'm poor, even if I'm not as smart as you, or as rich as you, or as powerful as you, or don't have the same background and heritage that you do, yet I have from God that which entitles me to be treated with dignity, so long as I do not offend against the law. So if I'm innocent of any such offense, you don't get to come kill me just because I'm in your way, or in the way of your career, or in the way of your nation. It's wrong. Do we want to discard that? Because if we're going to act as if there is some abortion right involved in killing the child as a result of rape, and we are going to accept that, as the Romney-Ryan team appears willing to do, then we have discarded the Declaration. We've discarded the doctrine of unalienable right, which by no logic can be seen not to cover the situation of that child in the womb. So it just strikes me as one of those things that's not just about an individual here. It's not just about what is happening to Todd Akin. It's about what I think a lot of these pro-abortion elitist moneybags who are so much now in control of the Republican Party want to do to undermine and destroy the foundations of the pro-life movement. I frankly believe, as you know, that that's why Romney got the nomination in the first place, because he represents a facade of pro-life lip service combined with a career that has been uniformly characterized by accepting and taking actions that violate the premise of unalienable rights and God-endowed right in the Declaration. So I think this is just one of those signs. And frankly, the willingness of the elitist pundits and other talking heads to gang up on Todd Akin, it says to me they didn't think much about that, did they, Stan? Because if you think it through, by the way, even the notion that saying legitimate rape is like saying wood and iron, right? And I'll have to tell you, that was my first reaction. I just scratched my head. Why would anybody put those two words together? And yet, Stan, though I don't have the greatest imagination in the world. Every now and again, my memory helps me out. And as I was thinking about this, I suddenly remembered Tawana Brawley. Do you remember her?
Oh, sure.
Tawana Brawley was the young lady back in 1986, I think, or somewhere thereabouts, 87, who made an accusation of rape against 6 people. Al Sharpton picked it up, blared it all over the place. Leftist media talked about Tawana Brawley's rape, and so forth and so on. So it really had legs out there. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And it aroused anger and resentment and demonstrations and so forth and so on. Well, it turned out, Stan, that after the grand jury looked at the evidence, they concluded that no forcible sexual assault had occurred, that there was no evidence of this. And that's, I think, now been generally accepted as the case. And Sharpton then later came out and said, well, it doesn't matter because young girls have been raped in this situation, and she just represents them. So we had a fictional rape that then was going to be used to convict real human beings, and including some police officers, because Al Sharpton thought a point should be made. And then it suddenly occurred to me, it turned out that that wasn't a legitimate rape. And I was reminded that we commonly use the word legitimate, not to mean lawful, but to mean that which actually corresponds to a factual situation, or that which actually corresponds to an existing real event or object in the world. It's used that way all the time. I looked it up on the internet, and it's the second definition that's given in Merriam-Webster's online dictionary. So it's not some obscure recherche, scholarly understanding. It's so far from being obscure that there's a common question. All of us have probably used it at some time. You put it into the internet and all kinds of hits come up on this word. And what is it? On this phrase. Is he legit? Have you ever heard that phrase?
Absolutely.
And that's legit used not as lawful, but as for real. Do his words correspond to what he really is? Right? Does the appearance that he or she presents correspond to what they really are? Does the story correspond to what really happened? And it was exactly in this sense, if you go look at the words, that Todd Akin was speaking, because he was referring to the fact that if you're dealing with forcible sexual assault, where violence has occurred, then X, Y, and Z he referred to are the effects on the possibility of conception. Now, between you and me, Stan, I still don't know where he got this idea that the trauma is going to have some effect on the likelihood of conception. He'd have to convince me of that. But the simple fact is that the use of the word legitimate in that sense, which is being played out by all these leftists and all of these attackers and so forth as disrespectful of women and implying there can be a lawful, it's all a lie. And any intelligent person thinking about it is going to reach that conclusion, as I did when I gave it a little thought. And yet we have all these people, supposedly intelligent, GOP, stable pundits and talking heads ganging up on this guy. Off with his head, they say. And I'm saying, this is not the usual way that they respond when one of their darlings steps all over his tongue. And this gentleman actually did not step all over his tongue the way they claim. He actually used the word legitimate in a context where it makes sense. And yet, they now want to act as if his head should be cut off. Why are they so upset? I think you put your finger on it. It is because what they're really up to is they want to delegitimize the position that Todd Akin takes. They want to make it clear that whereas under G.W. Bush, we were saying, okay, there's really no logic to it, but I feel like you have to make an exception for rape, right? That was essentially the position that was taken, acknowledging that it contradicts the principle and the logic of our way of life to withdraw from an innocent being the protection that is a consequence of an unalienable right that comes from God. We knew this. Now suddenly we're seeing the Romney-Ryan ticket taking the position that we're never going to try to protect the life of that child, as if, and someone told me, this is hearsay, so I haven't checked this out. I always like to be careful telling people that. And either somebody on their campaign or whatever had said that there's no constitutional issue involved. Well, I beg to differ. What's involved is an issue that affects the principle in light of which the Constitution was written, from which the institutions of self-government established by the Constitution derive their claim to legitimacy. And the notion that it's just fine and dandy to withdraw protection from the innocent life of that child because the father of the child raped somebody is an offense against justice. It's an offense against common sense. It's an offense against common decency. And those who now want us to act as if candidates who take that position are just beyond the pale and wrong, they are people who are actually part of the effort I talk about quite often to overthrow our allegiance to the Declaration of Independence. Final point. I hope everybody realizes that once you discard the premise of unalienable right, God-endowed rights that governments do not have the authority to trample on, right? Then limited government is thrown out the window. And what comes in its stead is actually an Ayn Rand kind of world, believe it or not, in which the superior people who can get the force and power can then use the instruments of government to stomp on everybody else, because after all is said and done, the people who aren't superior don't deserve any respect for, quote, their rights, because there is no God to give them those rights. She was an atheist and deeply hated the idea that we would see God as the active agent of justice in our politics and in our universe. That frees the hand of the elites. You know that, Stan. It leaves them in a position to basically say, since I'm the superior one, I get to claim the rewards and the benefits, even love. In one interview, she said that the people who aren't superior, they have no claim to love. And I'm thinking to myself, what nonsense is this? How could anybody of decent heart and conscience ever pretend that there is some moral justification in what this woman says? Because the rejection of God leads to the rejection of unalienable right. It leads to the rejection of limited government. It overturns the whole way of life and decent self-government under law that America is supposed to be about. And I see this, just as you put your finger on it, at the heart of the effort to kind of say off with his head and drive Todd Akin out of the arena. And I'm against it. I think that folks who are willing to take the consistent, principled stand on the Declaration and on unalienable right and on our need not to punish innocent people for crimes of others, parents or not, I think that that is something that as a decent people not willing to engage in the collective responsibility barbarism that characterized other societies, that's something we need to stand on, because if we don't, the whole idea of individual rights goes out the window.
Well said, and I want to let everyone else comment, then I want to comment. Let's start with you, Greg. I'm not hearing Greg. Greg?
Sometimes you just, I muted my microphone because otherwise I would have been interrupting with choruses of amen. You know, this is the same type of good speaking that Alan is known for. And sometimes you just shut up and get out of the way and let the master do his work. I can't add one jot or tittle to it, so y'all carry on. If you find some use for me, let me know.
Chief?
One of the things that I've learned from being on the Stan Solomon show is that not all Republican candidates, myself included, are as good at describing issues as Dr. Keyes and Stan Solomon. And so how dare the GOP chastise one of their own for poorly describing a good position? Now, and one of the other issues I found in the rape pregnancy debate is that it's a hypothetical situation. So when people are discussing hypotheticals, it's easy to say, well, for example, a pregnancy as a result of a rape. And then you think hypothetically, what's just a product of rape? What is that? That's violence, that's bad things, blah, blah. Get rid of all that. But the GOP should be on the forefront of describing, we're not talking about a hypothetical here. We're talking about a human being that's been conceived. And once it's been conceived, as Dr. Keyes so rightly pointed out, that human being as an American has the right to life. And so for the GOP to be afraid of this and to skirt this and even cast their own aside and be willing to take another side, the other side of this, the dark side of this, it's really terrible in my viewpoint. The GOP should be standing on front of this, on top of this, and maybe saying, you know, maybe he didn't say it exactly right, but what he's saying is, you know, because someone got raped does not mean that the baby of that rape, and it's a baby, by the way, a human baby, should be discarded in the process. And one other thing I can add out here is I've often thought about the movie Rosemary's Baby. Now, that's a fictional movie, but in that movie, Rosemary was raped by the devil himself. At the end, she had a chance to kill that baby, and she realized, you know what, it's not just the devil's baby, it's my baby, and she didn't do it. And that's how we should all be thinking. It's a baby, it's a human baby, and if the mother needs help raising it or an adoption, whatever, we should be helping there and supporting that mother, but it's not the baby's fault. But it's not hypothetical, it's real human beings, it's real life, and we should be sticking on the side of life.
Let me say amen to Chief Steve and give you a little quick story. And I may have said this before. If I have, forgive me. A guy named Jerry Springer, who does a show, or did a show, I'm not sure if it's still on, is a friend of mine. And he would call me occasionally to be on his show. When he wanted someone that was conservative that they could beat up, on this particular show, and I was on his show several times, on this particular show, I sat between a woman who was like 6'3", weighed 290 pounds, was an out-of-the-closet lesbian, and her 11-year-old son, who was a Cub Scout. She wanted to be the den mother, and the scouts wouldn't let her be the den mother because she was now the closet lesbian. They also had on this show a guy by the name of Luke Sissifag. That was his legal name. He was a homosexual activist who thought the Boy Scouts should be disbanded. They had two others. One, a guy who was in the Scouts, became an Eagle Scout, and then came out and said he was a homosexual. And another guy who was thrown out of the Scouts for being a homosexual, and me, obviously a balanced panel. And so this lady, I'll just call her, I don't know, Henrietta, said to me in her baritone voice, at the time my daughter, who's now in her late 30s, was a child. She was 12. She said, all right, Solomon, what would you do if somebody raped your daughter and got her pregnant? Huh? I said, would you like a mint? But then I said, listen, here's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't kill my granddaughter. I'd kill the son of a bitch that got her pregnant. What would you do? Blah, 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 blah. She sounded like Joe Biden on a hard day. The bottom line is what the bottom line is. Whether Todd spoke well, misspoke, what he said was he believed, and he admitted he was wrong and apologized for making a wrong statement, that the female body reacts under trauma and you're less likely to get pregnant. I don't think there's scientific proof of that, so we'll say he made a mistake in that presumption that he had heard. But the reality is what the reality is. And we have had not one, not two, not 10, not 100, but thousands of people who have come forward and said, I'm the product of rape. My mother was raped. I didn't rape anyone. I'm no less a human being because I'm the product of rape. I'm a child of God and also a child of this woman and a child of that man. That's the point Alan's making. That's the point Todd Aiken was making. And that's the point we should make. And every one of us should sit down and write a check for $20 or $5 or $50, whatever you can afford, and send it to him and say, stay in the race and stay competitive.
I would like to reinforce that, Stan, because I was going to try to raise this if I had an opportunity. One of the standard things that is done, and it's my suspicion in this case, if you elect someone who takes a thorough, consistent pro-life position as the nominee, right? One of the standard things that happens in the presently, sadly, tragically corrupted GOP, corrupted by the control of anti-abortion, of pro-abortion money and these forces, is that on some excuse or other, they'll withdraw money support from that consistently pro-life candidate. And I watched this happen, and I said, oh, gosh. Well, under most circumstances, they would think for a couple of seconds, see the obvious and clear defense of a man of decency who had misspoke. This is one of those cases where that overused word actually applies, and so forth, and maybe misunderstood in terms of the science he was talking about. But to get all over him and act as if he was, worthy of the kind of scurrilous, slanderous character assassination that's been going on and all of this, and then off with his head, get him out of there, not warranted in the least little way. But why did it not? Why did that not occur? Why did it suddenly, all at once, without even a moment's thought, practically, Ann Coulter, all these sort of people jumping all over, get him out, because that was their goal. They wanted an excuse to do what they were going to do anyway, which was try to sabotage the chances that a consistent pro-life person who really respects the principle involved was going to get to the U.S. Senate.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back. We have lots of other stories to discuss. Stay tuned, please. This is Talk to Solomon. You have a computer, if you're alive today, which means you have a hard drive, which means it's going to break down. Mosey, the backup people, for thousands, for Stan, for thousands of people, for tens of thousands of people, is simply common sense. You go to cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and sign up. It's just a few dollars a month. Let me tell you something. We had a break-in. They stole our whole computer. You know what? When they take the computer, you can't recover anything, but we had Mosey. We had the backup. We were able to restore everything simply by buying another computer. cpnlive.com, click on the icon for Mosey, the backup people, and give yourself common sense, peace of mind, great value, the best thing you've ever done. Sooner or later, it's going to be Mosey, the backup people. I like to eat. Do you like to eat? We all do. And usually we run to the grocery store, we run to the convenience store, or we have something in the fridge. But power's been out in parts of this country in the last few weeks. We don't know what's going to come down the pike economically. Smart people are putting in food. Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves is a line of foods that you can put away that will last for a very long time. You know, they say eat what you store and store what you eat. This is great tasting stuff, healthy for you, a full line. You go to our website, cpnlive.com, and click on the button for Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves and see all the different things we have. This is good tasting food. It's reasonably priced. It will last. And it's worth its weight in gold if a problem arises. I know you don't think there's going to be anything that goes wrong. Actually, you do. This is smart. This is smart insurance. This is smart preparation. This is smart thinking. You have kids, you have a spouse, you have parents, you have dependents, you have an appetite. All those things can be addressed by a frugal but smart investment in Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves. Try them out. You will be tickled to death with the taste of them. You know what? In many cases, people start to eat this and they think, heck, this tastes better and costs less than what you're going to the grocery store to buy. cpnlive.com, check it out. Let me ask you a question. Do you like being sick? I have in my hand an incredible product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. TR10 stands for a trace to the negative 10th power. The particles in this silver product are 6 to 8 angstroms, 6 to 8 10 billionths of a meter. Now listen to me. Silver has been the magic bullet for all of human existence. The Egyptians used silver instruments. We use silverware. They put silver in your teeth because nothing can grow on silver. Silver will kill anything but liberalism. I'm working on that. This product, you go to cpnlive.com, buy 1 quart of this product. It will last you for a very long time. Anytime you feel like you've been exposed to something bad, take some of this product, spray it in your mouth, or take a little bit and gargle it, swallow it. It will kill any pathogen. The average antibiotic kills 10 to 20 different pathogens. This product will kill 700 plus. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your doctor a favor. He's tired of seeing you. Get supercolloidal silver. Go to cpnlive.com, order the product. It's $29.95 plus shipping. I think it's $39.95 delivered any place in America right to your door. It's worth 10 times that. Check it out. If you're not 100% happy, just return it and we'll give you your money back. Do you like being healthy? I do. In fact, this product, which I've been taking for years now, is absolutely the answer. Now, you may not believe it, but I'm actually 21, plus tax, of course. This product has 146 different healthful nutrients in it, and it's liquid, so it's bioavailable. It tastes great, and it's sugar-free. 1 ounce of Sonic Life each day will help you to maintain and enhance your health. It's the kind of a gift, well, that you'll thank your mom for, your husband for, your wife for, your kids for. Whoever you give it to, they're going to say thank you, and you are going to enjoy the benefits of having all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the nutrients your body needs in one very reasonably priced product. Just go to cpnlive.com and everything's right there. You'll be able to read all the ingredients, The price is right there, a flat price delivered to your door anywhere in the United States of America. Sonic Life is a gift, a great gift. Give it to yourself. I do.